Welcome to the debate. Today we're looking at the Shahnameh, Ferdowsi's epic poem. It's truly a monumental work, foundational for Persian culture, filled with these incredible stories like the tyrannical Zahhak and the hero Fereydoun. What's really fascinating, and what we'll dig into, is how Ferdowsi reinterprets these ancient myths.
Right, and the core question we're wrestling with is this. Does Ferdowsi's Shahnameh, by humanizing characters like Zahhak and Fereydoun, fundamentally change the original meaning and purpose of the Zahhak myth? Or does it mainly just deepen our psychological understanding of, tyranny and heroism?
Exactly. And I'll be arguing that Ferdowsi's humanization really enriches the narrative, giving us these profound psychological and sociological insights.
And I'll be presenting the view that, these alterations actually shift the myth's original cosmological significance quite significantly.
Okay, so my position starts with looking at the Shahnameh itself, this massive work. 50,000 rhyming couplets, building on earlier chronicles like the Pahlavi Khwateanamak. It undeniably transforms the demonic Dahaka from the older Zoroastrian tradition into a figure we can actually sort of understand, Zahhak. And this isn't just, a surface-level change. It's a deep dive into human corruption, the very origins of evil. Ferdowsi presents Zahhak not as inherently monstrous from the start, but as a prince, the son of Mardas, who is slowly, quite insidiously corrupted by Ahriman or Iblis in this context. His fall into tyranny is depicted as this chilling, step-by-step moral decay. First, Ahriman uses flattery to convince him to murder his own father. Then, he introduces meat into Zahhak's diet, which is portrayed as making him more vicious. And finally, there's the devil's kiss, manifesting as these two black snakes growing from his shoulders, demanding a daily tribute of human brains. This detailed progression, from ambition to outright tyranny, fueled by what the text suggests is an internal emptiness and definitely external manipulation, it offers a really nuanced psychological study. It explores how power corrupts and how individuals can make these terribly self-destructive choices. And Fereydoun, on the other side, he's also presented as very human, a warrior king, born to Obchen and Faranak, raised in secret by his mother, and then inspired by Kaveh the blacksmith to lead a popular uprising. This grounding in human agency, I think, makes Fereydoun's victory a universal symbol of courage and resistance accessible to ordinary people, not just some predetermined divine event.
Right. I see that. But I come at it from a different way. While the Shahnameh is without doubt a monumental achievement, I'd argue that this very humanization of Zahhak fundamentally reconfigures the myth away from its original Zoroastrian context. It effectively reduces what was a cosmic battle against a primordial evil, an evil on a truly universal, fundamental scale, down to more, let's say, terrestrial drama, focused primarily on human morality. If you look at the Avesta, the sacred Zoroastrian texts, Dahaka isn't merely a flawed human. He's explicitly described as a monstrous creation of Ahriman, 3 heads, 6 eyes, 3 mouths, whose entire purpose is to depopulate the world. That signifies an elemental and existential force of evil, something absolute. It's not a human character study with potential for redemption or showing a gradual slide into evil. And similarly, the original figure, through a Toyna, who becomes Fereydoun, he isn't just a brave human leader. He's depicted as godlike, or at the very least superhuman. He's called the possessor of 3 powers, able to cure illness, rid bodies of vermin. His victory over Dahaka isn't just his own doing. It's aided by deities, gods of water, wind, strength. This paints a picture of a struggle of truly cosmic proportions, where ultimate good triumphs over an absolute, almost personified evil. So by stripping these figures of their overt supernatural origins and their immense powers, Ferdowsi, while certainly adding a different kind of narrative depth, I believe diminishes the myth's original cosmological and dualistic significance. The focus shifts away from that foundational epic struggle between Ahura Mazda and Ahriman.
I see why you emphasize that cosmic scale, and it's definitely present in the older texts.
but let me offer a slightly different perspective on the value of Ferdowsi's approach. His portrayal of Zahhak's seduction by Ahriman, this very human, step-by-step process of moral degradation beginning with the murder of his father Mardas, it offers incredibly powerful insights into the mechanisms of tyranny, how it actually works in a human context. The text specifically mentions Zahhak's lack of, quote, stability of character, and how an absence of love creates a void that Ahriman then masterfully exploits. This isn't just about explaining a monster, it's about exploring how a human becomes monstrous. And there's a brilliant linguistic point here in Ferdowsi. The word used for brains that the snakes demand, makhaz, also means core or essence. So when those snakes are fed human brains daily, it's not merely about physical horror. It becomes this chilling metaphor for how tyranny spiritually and morally hollows out a society, how it consumes the very core, the essence of its people. That, to me, provides a far more relatable and, frankly, instructive narrative about human vulnerability to evil than simply presenting a creature born of Ahriman.
I hear your argument. And the psychological depth Ferdowsi achieves is certainly compelling, I won't deny that. But I respectfully disagree when it comes to the fundamental nature of evil being portrayed in the myth. While the Shahnameh gives us this fascinating human narrative, a prince's corruption, the Avestan tradition of Zahhak as Ahriman's direct offspring, this monster embodying all possible sins and evil counsels, well, that really emphasizes an inherent, non-negotiable form of evil. This demonological origin makes the threat absolute, something operating on a cosmic scale, beyond human failings. Focusing so heavily on human flaws and psychological voids, while interesting for a human-centered story, ultimately, I believe, diverts from that foundational Zoroastrian understanding of good and evil as these vast, opposing cosmic entities, locked in struggle. The Avesta's Zahhak, with the 3 heads, the 6 eyes, it's a direct physical manifestation of the destructive spirit. It serves as a powerful allegory for a kind of evil that transcends mere human weakness and is literally destined in the text to depopulate the world in a way that no purely human villain, however tyrannical, really could.
That's a strong point about the sheer scale of the cosmic evil represented. Yet, I still come back to the power and significance of human agency in Ferdowsi's version. Think about his Phrygian, a human, son of Apton and Faranach, raised in hiding, who then inspires this popular revolt led by Kaveh the blacksmith, whose leather apron becomes the legendary banner, the Darif Sheikh of Iani. This whole sequence really elevates the narrative beyond just a simple divine intervention story. It powerfully emphasizes collective human resistance, the impact of individual courage. It effectively transforms Phrygian into a kind of everyman hero. As Ferdowsi suggests, Phrygian achieves virtue through justice and generosity, implying that, if you practice these values, then you, too, are Phrygian. Doesn't that reframing make the victory over tyranny an aspirational human achievement? A triumph of the human spirit and collective action rather than just a supernatural event playing out? And perhaps that makes it more resonant, more meaningful for us, reading it centuries later.
That's a compelling argument for the human impact and relatability of Fereydoun's story, absolutely. However, let's consider the flip side. By stripping Fereydoun of his explicitly godlike, or at least superhuman character, and those supernatural powers like curing illness, controlling vermin, doesn't the Shahnameh potentially diminish the sheer epic scale of the victory itself? The Avesta's Fereydoun, this possessor of 3 powers, who defeats Zahhak with direct divine assistance from the gods of water, wind, and strength. His victory represents a complete and absolute eradication of a cosmic-level threat. Ferdowsi's Fereydoun, while incredibly inspiring on a human level, yes, he faces what feels like a more contained, perhaps more terrestrial form of evil. His victory, though profoundly significant for human history and culture in the poem, doesn't quite seem to carry the same weight of an ultimate cosmic triumph over an elemental force of pure destruction. That's a different kind of victory.
Okay, and speaking of the consequences and the nature of the victory, let's delve into one of the most intriguing aspects. Zahhak's ultimate fate, his imprisonment, not death. In the Avesta, the reason given for not killing Dahaka is very specific and, well, supernatural. It states that killing him would unleash vermin, snakes, insects, and the like, emerging from the wounds, which would then infect the entire world. This clearly grounds the decision to imprison him in a very specific, catastrophic consequence tied directly to dealing with an elemental form of evil.
Exactly. And that, for me, really highlights the difference in conception. Ferdowsi's version, while it keeps the imprisonment on Mount Damavand a powerful image in itself, it completely omits that specific vermin aspect. Instead, the text suggests Fereydoun was simply advised by an angel Sarosh not to kill Zahhak. This modification, I think, fundamentally transforms the reason for the imprisonment. It shifts it from a concrete, supernatural consequence related to the monster's very being to something much more symbolic and human-centric. The interpretation often drawn from Ferdowsi is that this symbolizes our own authoritarian tendencies, our own inner Zahhak, which can never be fully destroyed or eradicated. At best, it implies such tendencies can be kept at bay, controlled, and not enabled. That's a poignant, very human psychological truth, certainly, but it represents a significant departure from the cosmic imperative described in the Avesta.
So ultimately, Ferdowsi's masterful humanization of the Zahhak and Fereydoun narrative in the Shahnameh, it weaves this incredibly rich tapestry of psychological depth and sociological insight, and allows for these timeless reflections on human nature, the insidious temptations of power, and the enduring spirit of resistance. And that resonates, I think we can agree, very profoundly with audiences across generations.
And while that depth and resonance are undeniable, it also can't be denied that this very transformation necessarily recontextualizes the myth. It shifts its primary focus from what was originally in the Zoroastrian texts, a cosmological struggle between divine forces of good and absolute evil, towards a more human-centric exploration of morality, political legitimacy, and societal dynamics.
Both interpretations, though, offer incredibly valuable pathways to understanding the profound and multifaceted legacy of this truly seminal Persian epic. There's richness in both the cosmic and the human readings.
Absolutely. The story of Zahhak and Fereydoun, really, in all its iterations, continues to invite deeper exploration into its many layers of meaning. It proves its enduring power, regardless of precisely how we choose to interpret the balance between the cosmic and the human elements. There's still much to uncover.